Okay, so we're looking at a story here in the Houston Chronicle that says many in college lack basic skills. For Texas, it's a $200 million a year problem. Um, it's been the dirty little secret of higher education for decades. Tens of thousands of college students can't do the work. It talks about developmental education, which is reteaching basic skills in reading and writing and math, is a $200 million a year problem in Texas, which is funded by taxpayers, colleges, students themselves, and also private groups also spend millions of dollars on the issue. Now, it makes a point here in the article that a small percentage of the students in Texas that are going on, that graduate from college and go on to graduate from high school and go on to college actually end up getting their degree. And it says 2/3 of students require some type of at least one remedial course in these basic skills. But now it's saying all this money is being spent on doing developmental education programs to teach these high school age students, to reteach them these basic skills. But despite that, I read a statistic that says less than 7% of those students that actually go through one of these remedial programs go on to finish college and get a degree. So it's really not having much of an effect. Now, what we've realized in our research about reading, which is kind of like, it's the primary point. Reading and words is like words transfer the information that we all, the world runs according to. And so obviously reading within that is the primary way that you're able to get information so that you can understand something and then be able to transfer it to someone else. For instance, read a book in college, write an essay or do your work so you can transfer that information that you learned. But what we've realized in our research is that all of these attempts to remediate or fix these problems with basic skills, they're only ever looking at the symptom. They're trying to alleviate the symptom of a problem that obviously is being caused way earlier on within the school system. Like, when do you learn to read? You learn to read, like, that's one of the first things you do, right? So now, the same way that you learn to walk, that's one of the first things you do. But what's interesting about walking is that once you learn to walk, you don't forget how to walk. It's not something that goes away. You now know how to walk, and you can adapt to different terrains and stuff like that. But when you look at reading,
well, Bernard had talked about the statistics and the research in the U.S. that showed that when students, like when they take a break for school, they actually get worse in their reading skills.
They lose their reading ability.
So the way we're teaching reading as if it was like a skill like running, where you have to practice it to get better, and if you don't continue practicing, then you actually regress in your abilities. So it's like, unless you keep up this constant practice, it's like you actually will fall back into the old ways. Meaning, it's like we're not actually, the way we're being taught, we're not actually developing a real ability. It's just like, what is it? I don't know. It's like a coping mechanism. It's like a skill that we're just practicing, and some people are excelling at, some people are falling behind. But we're not like actually giving the child a real ability that is theirs.
Right.
Well, you're never actually ever teaching the child how to read. You're just expecting particular people within the school system to either, basically do it on their own, which is that point you were making earlier about how most kids that do excel and make it through college are the ones who actually take reading on their own. They go out and they read themselves outside of class. So, either we're picking out those children who are going to do really well and just, everybody else is screwed.
Yeah, I didn't actually, the point she's mentioning is where I was talking about when you look at the people who do really well in college are usually the people who have done really well on SAT and have also excelled in high school. They did all their work. They were very studious. They were very self-disciplined and they're self-directed in doing their assignments and stuff like that. When you look at those people, you can see that primarily that group of students are very good at reading. They do a lot of reading on their own time. They read at a typically more advanced level than the average high school student in their same class. So
I mean, to me, that's suggesting a point of pre-programming. That they actually, if you look at the way we're being taught to read in schools from a young age, you're not, well, the way it actually works is you're taught basically rules, like spelling patterns. Or, for example, you're taught phonetic rules. But the problem is that when you encounter a child who's not necessarily highly intelligent to begin with, they haven't developed this higher intelligence for memorizing rules and grammatical rules and spelling patterns and things like that. Whenever they come across words that don't fit the pattern, then they don't know what to do. I mean, I experienced this myself. Like, you don't know what to do because you're not able to remember the rule in that specific case.
It's also a point that's built in when you're younger. I mean, a lot of research has shown this, that if you're read to at home and at a young age, and it becomes a comfortable point where reading is done in a comfortable place, you're not pressured by your parents, but it's an enjoyable experience, then that carries on. Those children become very efficient in reading later on. But the problems develop often in very young children, like 3 or 4, who are not read to at home, or it becomes a tough issue at home. Like, the parents don't want to actually read to the children, so it's like a forced thing.
Or they don't have books at home, or
exactly.
something like that.
So it's not an enjoyable experience, and that obviously carries on and intensifies when they actually get into school, where that environment is very harsh, very intense. So
yeah, it's obviously very multifaceted. Whether it's in school, the way they're being taught doesn't really fit their particular intelligence, or whether they have a reaction to learning to read through like their home experience before learning to read. But the research also shows that if the child isn't exposed to books and reading, like kind of like you're pointing out, before they go into school, they're less likely to succeed at reading. So why is that? Why is the way we're being taught to read in school not just completely effective? I mean, we're seeing the evidence of it, like in this paper, which is saying that even kids that are in college now are lacking the basic skills.
Well, we can see that the way we're teaching children is based on tricks. It's based on learning phonetics, which is not able to apply itself across the board. Like, it may work with the word cat, for example. You can
sound it out.
Exactly. But when you go on in years, like within school, you get to words where that doesn't work. So it's like we're not initially putting in a system that is completely effective across the board that will assist every student to actually learn how to read.